Hello everyone and welcome to another Fatal Rose Creations tutorial. Today I am just going to go over the entire process of making a mesh. I've changed my process up a few times and I do some things different, so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to make a whole new tutorial start to finish and go with that. Doesn't mean any of the other tutorials I've made are wrong or bad, they're just different. The more I learn, the more I switch up my style, Some things will be, a lot of things will be pretty similar, just minor details that'll be different. And so yeah, the first thing we're gonna do is just model something in Blender. We'll go with a child avatar. We'll just keep it simple. So just gonna go to polygon here and if you don't know how to model in Blender, I would suggest watching Marvelous Designer. I'd suggest watching my Marvelous Designer tutorial. Of course, I'll show you my workflow here. It's just not, me explaining everything. Alright, so once you've got it all modeled, a couple of things we're going to do before we leave Marvelous Designer. We're going to click on the body and go to Property Editor, and then we're going to go to Smooth Avatar, check this box, and change that to 2. And the next thing we're going to do, you'll know you did it if you see these like divides in the body. Now we're going to highlight the whole shirt or whatever. There's a couple of ways that you can make lower poly things and change the topology and stuff of creations, but I'm just gonna go through the simple way that I do it. And you can still use, I used to go from Marvelous Designer and then to Zbrush to lower the poly of my stuff, but I don't do that anymore unless I necessarily like have to, like my design's just way too crazy without me doing so. So hopefully we won't need to do that with this shirt, but we'll see. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take the particle distance down to like 10, and it creates some nice creases and stuff. It just makes it look smoother. We also changed it to quads. Usually 10 or 15 is the sweet spot. I try to maintain TSR standards for my stuff, but so for shirts, for TSR, it can be up to 15K poly. Okay, I'll leave it at 10. Alright, then the last thing you need to do is change the UV. So just right click and press reset and then fill. Then okay. Then we're going to highlight everything and press Ctrl K. Then go to File, Export OBJ selected, and we're going to go to our folders and save it. Alright, so we want select all patterns, single, weld, thin. Include internal shape because we did an internal line with the cuffs. M100 X Y up Z, and then we can click OK. I don't close Marvelous Designer just yet because I like to see what the poly count is in case I need to lower it. So now you're going to go into Sims 4 Studio, have your creator name, go to cast, and we're going to search nude, and you should see the child's nude top. And go save it, however organization system you follow. For the file name, this is going to be the package name that people see when they download it, so I'm just going to keep it simple. And save. And then you're going to want to go to Meshes, Export Mesh, and you can save this as nude. I actually have a folder where I save all my nude bodies, but that's how you save it if you like want to export it every time. Then we're going to go into Blender 2.79. Now you can use newer versions of Blender. Personally, I like the simplicity of 2.79, so that's why I'm probably one of the few people that still use it. I think there are many ways to go about creating, and no one way is wrong compared to the other. You know, I guess unless your stuff is broken, but there's different ways to get to the same result. So you open up your nude. So one thing that I forgot to mention until later is that you don't want to make, because we're going into Substance Painter later and ZBrush, you don't want to make any adjustments to the mesh. What I mean by that is, like, don't go, oh hey, there's some clipping there, I'm gonna go into sculpt mode and pull it out. Like, well, obviously that's you know, don't do this. Don't use proportional editing to move it. Just don't move the mesh at all. What happens is when you go into ZBrush, if you make adjustments, what you end up with is these weird shadows, because the mesh that you go through ZBrush with isn't going to match the mesh that you finish and want to texture. So if I move the hole here, it'll create a dark shadow there that's kind of annoying to get rid of. So just don't move your mesh until later, and I'll explain it a little bit more, but I just want to explain it now so that way you don't get to that part and then be like, oh crap, well I've moved my mesh. So just don't move your mesh at all until I say so. And I'm just gonna double click it, just name it nude, and then you're gonna go to File, Import, Wavefront OBJ, and bring in your shirt. Now before I do anything, I just want to see about what the poly is sitting at. So click the shirt, go to Add Modifier, and then Decimate, and then move it. So we're about 10K. We probably could do with making it a little less, but since we're going to delete most of the body, I'm just going to leave it. So now highlight everything and click all these under Shading UV, all the smooths. And then I'm going to change it to Edge Select. And the first thing we're going to do is just close the holes. So you can right click, hold Alt, and then right click like an edge of a sleeve. And for this one, you can just press F and it'll fill it up. Same thing with the other sleeve, Alt, right click, F. And for the bottom, Alt, right click, F. And then for the collar, the other way you can close the holes is Alt, right click, E, click, and then S. And you can kind of move it a little bit and scale it down, and then you can widen it back up with S, and that should be good enough. And then we're gonna go over here and change UV map, double click it, UV_0, and plus UV_1. And then we're gonna go to the nude, press tab, and we're gonna deselect anything that's showing so that we can delete anything that's not. Because for not every mesh, because like earrings it's not, but for like shirts, clothes, shoes, the body is a part of the mesh. So every time you make a shirt, the body that imports with the shirt is actually a part of the shirt and not your sim, if that makes sense. So having all the pieces of the body adds to the poly count, and if it's covered up by where, you know, the clothes are, then you don't need it. So that's what we're just gonna do, is go through and delete what's hidden. And so I'm just pressing C and clicking my roll wheel to deselect. And then I can just go over here, press C, and click my roll wheel. I try to keep them as clean as possible. Okay, looks like, is this the back of the neck? Okay. Alright, so now we're gonna press X and then faces. And so now when we remove the shirt, that's what's under the shirt. Nothing. Okay. So now that we've got that done, we need a reference. So I'm just going to right click and open another Sims 4 Studio. And we're going to go to CAS. And we are doing a child top. We are making a child top. I like to try and get a reference that's the closest to what I'm making. And I try and get a base game one. We'll go with this one. And this package name doesn't matter, just call it reference. And you just need the Lods 0. So export, just call it reference. Again, I have another folder for all my references, but you know, organize how you like. So we can close that one. Back in Blender, go to File, Append, and then click on, in your folder, click on your reference, object, and bring in all the studio meshes. And then we're going to delete the bone shape, delete the rig, and then we're going to click these, hold shift and click all of them. Press Ctrl J, and I'm going to double click and name this reference. And then we're going to press Tab and make sure everything's highlighted, and then we're going to press W. And depending on your computer, subdivide it a few times. I usually go for 3, but I do have a higher end computer. 2 is good, just do what you can, you know. So now we're going to click here on our shirt that we created, and under UV1 click add modifier, data transfer. The source object should be your reference, and then check that box, UVs, UV1, UV1, and then press apply. And then if you press tab, this is about what your UV1 should look like. So now we can click over to UV0, and we're going to File, Save As, Data Transfer. And we're just going to minimize this and open up Blender 2.70. Alright, so in Blender 2.70, we are going to open up that file, the data transfer, and we can hide our nude. We're going to click on our reference and go to Vertex Paint and hide our creation, and then change to solid mode and open this back up, and you should see this panel. Click this, click the dropper, then I'm going to click about right there, and then I'm going to unhide my creation, click it, go to Vertex Paint, and then Paint, set vertex colors, back to object mode, go into back into our reference, back into object mode, and then we're going to click our reference, hold shift and click our creation, and then go to weight paint, and then transfer weight and change method to nearest vertex. And then we can file, save as, vertex paint and weight paint, save as Blender file. Then we can close 2.70 and go back into 2.79 and open that file. At this point, we should be able to get rid of our reference, so we're just going to delete that. We'll unhide our body, and then under this, we're just going to press A to move everything, and then click the name of your mesh, hold shift and click your nude. Press Ctrl J to merge them together. Now I'm sure you've noticed I haven't, although there's not really any edits to make, there's no super outward clipping. I'll add a little thing in the beginning because I didn't say it before this point, but don't make any adjustments to the location of the mesh before you're ready to texture. If you plan on going into ZBrush, because since we did ZBrush second, which even if you do ZBrush first, you want to make sure you save a file that has the correct merge placement where you haven't moved the mesh anywhere, because what will happen is when you go to ZBrush and you draw your details and stuff and then you go into Substance Painter, the meshes won't line up and they'll create weird shadowing, and we don't want that. So like I said, I'll leave a note in the beginning so that you know from jump not to do this. But if you've made it this far into the tutorial, don't physically, and what I mean by that is like, don't go into, you know, if you saw that it was clipping in the front here, I don't know, don't like move it forward to fix the clipping. Like obviously that's a gross example, but you know what I mean. Okay. So with that being said, now we want to get our actual mesh placement. So we're going to go to open and get our template. And then you'll see this got kind of stretchy. So we're just going to highlight it and go and press SY 0.5 to get it back to its original size. And now we need to unwrap our closed holes. So in face select, you just right click and then over here press E, and then E, E, and with this one you have to Alt and then right click because it's multiple faces, and then press E, and then we're just scaling it down. Alright, now that we've got all that, we can decide our mesh placement. So this is a top, so like the map suggests, put it where the top can go. The bigger you can have your UV, the better your texture will look. So that is something to keep in mind. Now some creators will say, oh, don't put your thing here if you don't have to, don't put it here if you don't have to, in these blank spots where there's not the actual mesh, because a lot of creators, including myself, like to put the texture placement for objects and stuff there, like my Dancing Barbie collab, the boombox, stuff that doesn't actually have a placement up here, like there's no body placement for a boombox, right? Or some of these boxes are really small, they'll use this excess space here, and so some creators are like, if you can, don't put your UVs there, but the way I look at it, it's like, bro, that's my space, leave me alone. So I mean, if you want to avoid it, go ahead, but you don't have to if you don't want to. So that's a good texture placement. And I'm just gonna file, save as, merged, no adjustments. So I know this is the one where I haven't moved it any at all, but it is merged. The first thing I'm gonna do, you see I've got all the closed holes parts highlighted. With that highlighted, first I'm gonna get out of tab so you can see the difference. You see that like dark gray? We're gonna make that go away. And you do that by highlighting anything that you extruded, press space, and then search edge, and then edge split. And as you can see, it's gone. And so now, before we go test it in game, there are a couple things that I like to do. You don't need that bar. I like to do what I call preemptive clip fixing. So I'm gonna, with face select on, I'm gonna press L while holding shift and highlight all the body pieces. Then over here, I'm gonna click in there and then press P selection to separate the body from the shirt. And I'm gonna do some preemptive fixing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna, so like right here, it's really close to the edge. So I feel like it's going to cause clipping. So I'm just gonna click that face. Then I'm going to turn on proportional editing, and I'm just going to move it a little bit to give me the thing, and then this is a little tricky. You can also use sculpt mode, but now I'm just rolling up on my roll wheel to kind of lessen the area. And I'm just going to pull that out a little bit. That's better. So this one is a little off too. Just gonna pull that. And then with the back, since it's more of the back, I'm gonna make the circle a little bigger and pull it. Now you can also use sculpt mode. When you're in proportional editing, always make sure you turn it off. To do sculpt mode, you just go to sculpt mode. You need this opened back up. Change it to grab, and then you can change the radius. And you can do kind of the same thing, but sometimes it's a little more jagged and less natural looking. So that's why I went with proportional editing. But that's how you can adjust it in either mode. And the reason why, you know, we haven't even gone in game to test it, right? So we don't even know if any of this is necessary. But it's just stuff that, like, you know, once you've made enough meshes, you can kind of guess what's going to be something that clips, you know? And so if we can fix it now rather than later, why not? Alright, so I think everything looks pretty good. While it's moved, I'm going to save this as bake. Since the body's already separated, just going to use this as my bake file to get a tester texture. So over here, I'm going to turn on all the lamps. I'm going to hide the body. Then I'm going to open up the rig and hide the rest of it as well. Then over here, I'm going to press A and then press X down here and then new. And I like to do high quality size textures. So that's 2048 by 4096. Base game is 1024 by 2048. Alright, now I'm going to unpress tab, go over here, delete both of these, make a little color. Change that, turn the specular down, and then I'm going to change my margins to like 5, and then click bake. And you should get a nice tester over here, so I'm just going to say image, save as, tester, and then we can save that as bake. And then just put the shirt back on the body with Control J, and then we can save this as merged with adjustments. And now we go into Sims 4 Studio. On our nude body and go to mesh and import and do that merged with adjustments. Alright, so as you can see, our poly count is 12K. It's a little higher, but I tend to make alpha stuff, so I think that's fine. If you want it lower, you can go in lower. One thing I've noticed is that sometimes, actually most of the time, doing this way can create some actually, never mind. So if it popped in like this, you're on the right track. Now we're just gonna put in a tester texture, the diffuse, go to import, and we're just gonna bring in our tester. And that's our tester texture. And now we're going to adjust our categories. So it's child, we'll make it male and female because their body frames are the same. This is blue, child, masculine and feminine. And then click the categories it can go with. And then I always check leather so you can find all my stuff if you pick leather. Then we're going to go to t-shirt. And then deselect these things. Save. Alright. Now we should be good to go test it. And of course, to do that, all we need to do is go to Documents, Electronic Arts, The Sims 4 Mods, and then I have a folder called My Creation and a test folder. And if you want to add a test thumbnail to make it easier to find, you can go to Import, and the thumbnail size is 10. I do 832 by 1184, but I think that's multiplied 8 times so that the thumbnail could be nicer. I actually can't think what the original size is. I have a test thumb, so we can save it. Minimize that, minimize this, and bring up the child's folder and just drop that package file in there. And now we need to go in game. Alright, so once we're in game, we're just going to get a random kiddo and go to shirts. And then we know we did it blue and leather. And there's our test thumb. So we can see it already looks pretty decent in CAS. The first thing we want to test is the different body sizes. So make them a little chunky. And then make them really skinny. And we see it works fine there. And then the next thing, we just want to see how it looks when it walks, which I guess with kids you can't do that. So we'll just go make an adult. Alright, so we just want to literally just make him walk. See how it swings with his arms. Basically, we're just checking that the movement of the shirt looks natural and that there's not any crazy clipping or anything like that. So yeah, things look pretty decent. So we can exit and go into texturing. Alright, so once we've done that, drag the package file back into its original placement so that our stuff saves. And we're just going to get this file ready to texture. So we're going to go to the one with no adjustments. And first we're going to separate the body. We're just going to delete the body. Okay. And now we're going to highlight and press X, new, and then 2048, 4096. Okay. And then while it's still highlighted, click UVs and export UV layout. And we're just going to call this UV layout. and then export. Now we're going to go into a photo editor. I like to use Photoshop, so that is what I'm going to use. You can use, I used to use paint.net. It's a free one in the Microsoft Store, and then there's also Gimp, which is free, but I don't like how Gimp works, but to each its own. So we're just going to open that UV layout and go to image, canvas size. And this box should pop up and change. So with a shirt, we want it to stay where it is, so we need to click down. With like things that are up here like jewelry, earrings, you'd click up, but with the shirt it's in this bottom half. So we're going to keep it in this bottom half and then change this to 2048. The reason why we're doing this is because Substance Painter works in squares. If you're not using Substance Painter, then you can just skip this step. Now we're just going to export it and then save. And then we're going to go back into Blender, press X and then open, and then UV layout. Then we're going to press SY2, click, and then GY, and we're going to go GY, and this is so it only moves up and not side to side. Just gonna try and get it as accurate as we can. Okay, so that is sized properly. So now we can go to File, Export, Wavefront OBJ, click Selection Only, and deselect Apply Modifiers. And we're going to change this to, just name it Zbrush, and then export. And so yeah, the first thing we're going to do is go into Zbrush. Okay, so click Import and click on our ZBrush. This box most likely popped up because I pressed F, and so there's circles, and ZBrush recognizes quads and triangles, so it's going to break up the closed holes funny, but that doesn't matter because the texture on that is really unimportant. Basics in moving. This frames it to the whole thing. This moves it side to side. I usually use my drawing tablet, so that's why I'm pretty much only familiar with these. Zooms in and out and rotates it. And so as you can see, because these are circles, ZBrush freaked out, but like the one up top is fine. But it really doesn't matter, and you'll see why it doesn't matter. So first go to Polygroups, Auto Groups with UV, and then Display Properties double. Then we're going to go to Geometry, Z Remesher, double, keep groups, and slide this to 0, and then press Z Remesh. And then we're going to hit Divide until this number changes onto 1,000,000. Okay, 2 million is what we're going with. Alright. So, as you can see, if you close your holes with this method, you won't have this issue. But again, this issue is really a non-issue. So now we've got like our high poly, you know, nice and smooth. If we go to transform and click line, but deselect that, we can see where it's separated. Now the reason why I choose to do ZBrush after the fact instead of before Blender now is because what I used to do is generate my UV map in ZBrush, and I hated it. And so doing it this way, I can keep my Marvelous Designer UV map, and so that is why I switched it up. So now we're going to go get some of our brushes that we purchased, and we'll get like a simple seam. This didn't really show anything. That's too big. So you can change the draw size. I think doing anything like this is much easier on a drawing tablet, but I don't feel like cooking it up, so that's why we're doing it here. So all I'm doing is just using different brushes to give the impression of texture by drawing it on there. Now the one thing that's nice about if you do the ZBrush first is like the indentations and stuff that you draw on will actually be part of your mesh, whereas how we're gonna do it, it adds the indentation through shadows and stuff with the pictures. But because when you go through ZBrush, you make it so low poly anyway, I don't think it's that huge of a difference. So okay, so if you press Shift S F, you can get, you know, a look at how your drawn on stuff looks. And then usually the other thing I like to do is add some seams, but not always, because sometimes it gets messed up in textures and stuff. But I'll just show you how to do it. And like literally I'm just gonna draw lines where the or the mesh separates. Okay, I do not like that pen. Okay, yeah, I like that. If you can pick up a drawing tablet and this is something you want to like invest your time in, I would recommend it, especially like just drawing the seams is significantly easier if you have an actual tablet. But I'm doing it mouse and keyboard right now, so that is not to say that you cannot do it mouse and keyboard. And you absolutely, like, if you're sitting here thinking, oh my god, this is so tedious. It kind of is. And you absolutely do not have to do this part if you do not want to. It is not a required part of meshing. It just, if you're especially if you're a Maxis match creator, I highly doubt you would utilize this. I don't know, I don't make Maxis stuff, but it's definitely not a requirement to make CC to do this. Alright, that's what we're gonna go with. So at this point, we just go with export. SP for Substance Paint, save, or no, I would have saved it as high poly normally, but it's fine. And then we can close out. I literally just saved it. Okay. Alright, so now we can open Substance Painter. Alright, so we're gonna go to File, New, Select, and then the first one, the reason why we should have named it High Poly is so it's not confusing. The first one you want to bring is the actual ZBrush one, and then this is what your settings should look like. And click OK. And then we're gonna go over here and scroll down, click Bake Mesh Maps. That's 2048. Change this to 5. Change now this is where we bring in our high poly, so click this little paper, and so that's why you should have named it SP. And then change this one to by 4, and that should be everything. Bake selected textures. Then click return to paint mode. And as you can see, it's awesome possum. Now if we had used the one that we moved, there would have been dark shadows. Like we pulled this backwards, so there would have been like a black shadow there. We moved the hips out, so there would have been black shadows. So that's why I was saying that's important to make sure you have one that you didn't move. And as you see, this is, you know, janky, but again, just trust the process. It's not gonna matter. So now we just need to pick a texture to drop in there. I tend to go with this one because to me it gives a good cloth-like feel, and it usually maintains the stuff you drew pretty well. But we don't have to do that one. That looks like pants. Now with smart materials, you just have to drop it on there and it already adjusts, as you can see. But if you just use like a regular material, when you drop it, it drops like way out of proportion, and then you can make it smaller and adjust it to how you like. Okay, I'm just gonna go with this one because it maintains the lines that I drew the best. So once we have this, we can go to File, Export Textures, and then Output Templates. So you have to have an output template. So this is the output template that I use. And the way you create them is you press the plus sign, and we can say Sims for output template, and so for the base color we click RGB, and we can just name this base color and drag base color on top of it, and then we're going to click RGB channels. Okay, so for the next one, we're going to want to get the ambient occlusion, which shows the shadows and the folds and stuff of the clothes. So we're just going to click gray, and we can name it ambient occlusion. And then over here, we're going to get the ambient occlusion, drop it under gray, and then a gray channel. Now we need the normals, so we're going to do an RGB, name it normals, and we're going to get normal OpenGL over here and drag it onto here and do RGB channels. And the last thing that we want is the curvature. So the last channel that we need is our curvature. So we're just going to go to gray and change this to curvature, and then drag this onto here in gray channel. So now we can go to settings. Our output directory is just where we want it to save. We select that folder. Our output template is what we just made, so it should be down at the bottom. File type, PNG, leave that as 8. I'm doing 1020 or 2048. Then do dilation and transparent, and we're going to change this to 8. And then click export. And you should see all these things. We're going to go to Photoshop. Once we're in Photoshop, we're going to file open, and in your folder you should see some new stuff. So this is our base color. We're just going to go to select, color range, and click here. So the first thing, once we got the base color in, we're going to go to select, color range, and click here. Leave this at 3, and then just press OK. And then uncheck this lock, and then with your eraser, just click delete, and then Control D. And now we can go back to our folder and drag on top our ambient occlusion, and then last drop the curvature on there. And now with the curvature selected, hold Control and click the little box of the base color. We're going to click this lasso, and then over here right click, select inverse, and then we're just going to click here, press OK, and then delete. Click ambient occlusion, click there, OK, delete. Now we just need to tidy up our ambient occlusion because of the weird shading. So to do that, we're just gonna use an eyedropper to get this color, go into paint, press Control, and then here, so that I'm painting only here. And then I also just want to fix this a little bit if I can. Alright, so that just gives it a little bit of a clean. And if you want to with the curvature, you can kind of do the same. A lot of times with it, usually if I just kind of smudge it. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. Usually if I just kind of blur it on these, that's good enough. And then also, like, it's kind of jagged there, so we'll just blur it a little bit, give it less of a sharpness to it. Alright, now that done, we want it to be the right size, so go to Image, Canvas Size, click whichever direction. For shirts it's bottom, 4096. Now it's back to EA size, and then on curvature right here, change it to soft light, Then click ambient occlusion and change it to linear burn. And then we can go File, Export, Quick Export, and we can do Tester. Now, a few things we could do to make this more fun is, let's say we want to change up just the cuffs. Maybe do that. And that number right there, and there. And then we can merge these all together. Do that. Delete it just like we did with the other layers, and then drop this under the other two layers. And it's a little bright, so we can press Ctrl U and darken it up a little bit. And then File, Export, and just name it something. Then we can go into Sims 4 Studio and import. So this is the tester. As you can see, it just adds a whole lot more detail than what we got out of Blender. And we can go to add, and if we want to take a look at changing up the cuffs. So yeah, just a little subtle pop of color. Now if we wanted to get extra snazzy, you can go to a website where you can get images. I use Free Pick a lot, and I don't know, let's look up something fun. We'll go with this one. And then we go here, open that up. Just gonna delete all that. Make it a little smaller. And this is the front of the shirt. We'll put it like right there. And then just gonna change it to all gray. There we go. Put that stuff back on there. And now we have a shirt with a cute graphic on it. And so if we want to change the swatch colors, just right click here, drag the dropper. If it doesn't work, which sometimes it doesn't, then you can click the box and drop it down. For some reason my dropper does not want to work. Alright, so now we've got color on it. Let's do a shadow map. So we're going to go into Blender, open up our, actually we'll want to do just export your Lods 0. Save it, Lods 0. Now if you notice there's kind of a hard line because we did all the auto smoothing in the beginning, it also auto smooths the body. So once I have my mesh, like I know it's done, I just like to export the Lods 0 and then delete the body and just replace it. And a lot of times I do this with the Lod step because this is pretty much how you do Lods, but I'll go over that more clearly in a bit. But yeah, just delete the body and then bring in a new one and just delete all the same bits that you deleted before, just so you make sure that your mesh isn't separating at the seams. Because like I said, the upper body, the arms and hands are connected to the shirt, the legs and waist are connected to the pants. So when it doesn't line up properly because you've altered the body, then it's noticeable in game. And so that's why we just take this protective measure. I have found that with infants this doesn't work. I don't know why. It's the only age I've found that it doesn't work. So still trying to figure things out with infant clothing. But yeah, and then before we put it back together, just like with our bake, we're going to turn all the lamps on and we're going to hide the rig. Except this time we're going to click on the body and press Tab A, New, 2048, 4096, OK. And then we're going to hit change this to 2. And hit bake. You should get something like this, and we're gonna go to image, save as image, and then save it as the shadow map. And then we're just gonna put the shirt, attach it back to the body, and save this. And import that into Sims 4 Studio as the new Lods 0. While that's importing, go back into your photo editor and open up your shadow map, then change your color to white and drag a white square across, then make it the bottom layer. Then we're going to zoom in, go to select color range and eyedropper on the black part, and we're going to turn it down a bit. Right there should be fine. Then we're going to change this to like a light gray and click the paintbrush and change the opacity to like 30. And then we're going to add another layer, and I'm just going to do one swoop and then hide the middle layer, press Ctrl D, and that's your shadow map. Simple as that. Alright, for the specular, we're going to go back to our main texture, and we're going to hide everything but the base color. Then we're going to turn the base color completely white, and since it's clothing we don't want it very shiny, so now we're going to make it a deep red by clicking colorize like that, and then an opacity of like 7 or 8 should be fine. and we're going to save that as the spec. That's how you do the specular map. Then for the normal maps, we're going to go into a program called Njob, and we're going to use Njob to file, open the normal maps, and then file, save as normal map, and it's going to convert it to a bump file. So we're just going to save that. Then back into Photoshop, open up the new bump file. Normally I name it bump file, but I did not. Okay, this should be the right one. Then we're going to switch over to channels and click the red one. Then click this and make sure you highlight everything. Listen to this carefully, pay attention to this box if you need to. So we've got everything selected. We're clicked on red. Control C, Alpha 1, Control V, green, Control C, blue, Control V, red, Control V. Then you turn them all on again. So red, Control C, alpha, Control V, green, Control C, blue, Control V, red, Control V. File, save as a DDS, which you need the NVIDIA plugin for Photoshop, and then save it. And you should get this box that pops up, and we're going to change it to interpolated alpha, and then save. And that is the normal map done. And so now we can import our shadow map. And then our specular. And then our normal, which we can change to DDS. And then we've got our normal map. And then we can save that. And the last thing we need to do is the Lods. And so, to do the Lods, delete the body. I already have them saved, but if you don't, switch it to Lod 1, export the mesh, Lod 2, export, Lod 3, export. Then we're going to go in Blender. Once we've deleted the body, we're going to go File, Append, go to wherever you saved your Lod bodies, and first we'll bring in the Lod 1. And Lods are, the further you zoom out, the game cycles through the Lods to find basically the lower poly mesh, so that it doesn't have to use as much power if there's more sims in the scene. And we're just going to do the same thing that we did before. So we're just going to delete the body that we don't see. Sometimes if I'm lazy, I don't delete anything, but that's only if there's like no clipping. But as we can see, like there's clipping here and I don't feel like going through and fixing it. So it's easier to just delete the body. So X faces, and then click our shirt, click the body while holding shift, click in the 3D space, Control J to merge them, then go to add modifier and decimate. And for Lod 1, we want it to be about 9. So then you can just save it as Lod 1. I always like to check that the first Lod worked before I go and do the other ones, because if one's broken, then you have to go through and redo them all because they're all built on a broken guy. So if you ever like have a shirt or like you're playing in game and you zoom out and then your sim all of a sudden gets naked, yeah, it's because the creator didn't put the LODs. So that's LOD 1. And then you just rinse and repeat. Delete the body, X faces. Did I delete the shoulder? No, okay. File, append. Now we're gonna grab the LOD 2 top and just do the same thing. Well, this one's got more clipping, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use that proportional editing. And I'm just gonna bring that up a bit, and then bring that up a bit, and that fixes that clipping. And then you can click, we'll turn off proportional editing. And what you can do is click on the body and you can click this right here so you can see through. And we can just highlight the parts that are clipping. And then X faces. That should be fine. Rejoin them. Add modifier decimate. For this one we wanted about 6,000. Apply. File, save as, LOD 2, and then once again rinse and repeat. File, append, bring in your LOD 3, and delete those bits that are clipping. Good enough for me. Join them back together. Add modifier, decimate down to about 3,000. File, save as, LOD 3. So that is the best way to do it. If you were to just take your LOD 0 and add modifier, decimate it, apply, file, save as, I'm just going to call it BLOD1, add modifier, decimate down to 6, file, save as, BLOD 2, and then add modifier, decimate, file, save as, BLOD 3. Okay, so if you do it that way, let me just show you real quick. First of all, if you notice, when you go from LOD 0, the body changes, right? So if you do it by only decimating the LOD 0 over and over again, here's the results you're going to get. So as you can see, the neck, it's most noticeable on the LOD 3, but the neck does not line up with the body because it has the wrong body size. And so the neck will be off, and like if you could see the separation of the waist and the shirt, that would be off too. It's most noticeable in the Lod 3 because the Lod 0 body is not the same size nor the same pixels as the Lod 1 body, or the Lod 0 body. So doing them the way that I originally showed, here's the difference. So this is the Lod 1 that we want. The Lod 2. And the Lod 3. So as you can see, it all fits nicely together because it's with the right body it's supposed to be. So that's our Lods, all parts of our texture. So then the last thing we just need to do is add more textures and make sure the color categories are correct. So this one's black, this one's black and red, black, red, white, gray. Save it, and we just do one final round of testing. Alright, now that we are in game, I do want to note that I believe final testing should be done actually in game and not in CAS, because things can look one way in CAS and then another once you actually start walking around. So because it's so doggone dark outside, we'll just have little guy come in here. And yeah, so here is an up close and personal look with the added texture and all of the maps. And then as you can see, when we zoom out, he doesn't go naked because he's got his thoughts on properly. And then we can just take a look at it in CAS. And so this is how it looks in CAS, with, you can see that little glint of shine from the specular, and here's what the other colors look like. It's like the sleeves, and then with the panda. So that's really all you need to know on how to create a mesh. Now you just share it with the world or keep to yourself and have a good old time. Anyway, thanks for watching my tutorial. Sorry it took so long to get this out for you guys, but I hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch you in the next one. Before you go ahead and click that like and subscribe button if you haven't already, I just wanted to say if you ever have any questions, I don't seem to get my notifications from YouTube, so the best way to get in contact with me if you need help with your meshing, which I am so happy to do, just join my Discord, or if you want to add me privately, that's fine too. I'll leave the link in the description, but just add me on Discord and then you can send me your files and send me screenshots and stuff like that, so I can better help you rather than just like reading the comments. Not that I mind the comments. If that's what you're more comfortable doing, just know I don't always get the notifications for YouTube comments, and sometimes I respond to them really late. So if you want to get to me sooner, I'm on Discord most of the time.